How to draw the conference room chair. This chair is used in chapter 9 for the conference room, and it's taken from the exercises at the end of the chapter for chapter 5. And so here's our drawing with our dimensions. We've basically got this conference room chair, and the way the author has us create the geometry is to just draw it on layer 0, and then they're going to move those objects to a furniture layer in future chapters. So let's get started. I have my B-size architectural title block open, and I'm going to go into model space. I have my grid selected. I'm going to make sure my toolbar, if I hide the toolbar, you can't see it. Show the menu bar, menu bar. The dimensions on this drawing, 5 inches, 1 foot, 1 foot 10 inch, are all within 1 inch. And so we can, if we want to, use a grid and a snap of 1 inch, but we really can probably draw this without it. But if we wanted to go to drafting settings, snap and grid, we have the snap spacing set to 1/2 inch, and that's fine. And then we have the grid spacing. I would probably set this to 6 inches and okay that, and then just zoom up on some part of the drawing. I would start off by creating a line that would be the length and the width of it. And so as we look at this drawing, we have a height of 1 foot 10 inches, and then we have a width of 1 foot 11 inches. And as we go through and we look at it, we have to be able to distinguish the extension lines for the dimensions from the actual chair arms. And so the chair arms kind of go right here. These are the chair arms. And then this line right here would be the extension lines from the dimensions. And so the arm is 1 foot in length. And then we have to do a little bit of math to figure out how much the width is. There it is, 1.5 inches. 2 places. And so we have to do a little bit of thinking as we go through, to calculate out some of the sizes. But we can start off by creating a line and then just coming up with a convenient spot to start that drawing. And then we can track that with our polar tracking enabled. And we'll say 1 foot 10, enter. And then we'll track it to the right side and we'll say 1 foot 11, enter, bring it back down, 1 foot 10, enter, and C for close. I'm going to put a line weight on the layer properties for this layer just so that we can see a little bit better. Say 0.5. We'll enable our line weights. And then we'll offset, we'll start with the back where we'll offset that 5 inches. And then if we look at this at 1 foot 8 inches, that would be 12 plus 8, which would be 20 inches. And what we can do is we can draw a line down the center, and I'm just going to change the color to red so we can see it. And I'm going to use an O-snap for midpoint. And then we can offset that half of 20 inches or 10 inches to each side to then create this geometry with these 3-inch radiuses for the back of the seat cushion. And so we'll offset that 10 inches to each side. And then we'll use a fillet with a radius of 3 inches. Select radius, 3 inches. And since it won't create it with that particular geometry, we may be able to get it to go to no. And so what I can do is I can extend this line up a little bit here like this, and then we can fillet that. And so as we take a look at it, it's not really the perfect construction if it's a 5-inch component. Apparently it's just got this 3-inch radius across the back, but I don't think they're being really super critical as far as how we're going to create that. And so it's just a chair. And then I can just trim it. We can then offset that 10 inches to each side to get that line back. And we can match properties to make that the right color, as well as the back of it too. Alrighty. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to locate and create the geometry for this component right here. It's located 6 inches off the front of the chair, and the front of the chair has a radius of 4 inches. And so we'll fillet that 4 inches. We'll offset that geometry 6 inches. We can extend that out. And then we can put the fillet for the radius, which is 1 inch for the arms. And what we might want to do is trim it first so that, whoops, so that we can just have the chair geometry here. And then this back component is going to be even with this line right here. So we'll fillet that with 1 inch. And then we'll match properties. And it looks to me like this line here comes back out to here. Trim this. Match property. Trim this. Match property. Extend this. All right, so we've got the back of our cushion. We've got the sides of it. Looks good. If we wanted to, we can add dimensions to it. And so we can invoke a dimension line layer. We want our O-snap set to be on endpoints. And then we can put a dimension from the outside edge to the other outside edge. I'm going to change this to by layer. Delete that. And then I'm going to use a dim scale. Or let's dimension this in paper space. And so if we go to our layout, we double click within the viewport. We can then set a scale for that. And so we could set a dimension scale for, let's try something like 1 inch equals a foot. It's a little too small. There we go, 3 inches equals a foot. And then what we'll do is we'll go into our dimension style. And we'll modify that. On our Fit tab to dimension that to layout. Set it current, close it. There we go. And as we go through, we can go through and place that. We'll lock the dimensions. If we want to add the word reference to that, we can double click on it, go to the end of it, hit enter, and say REF, click off of the part. QPL would mean 2 places. Hit the green check mark. Add another dimension for the cushion. My cushion doesn't look quite as good as theirs, but add our 1 foot 10 inch. And I have the viewport locked. And so if your geometry is moving within the viewport, that's because the viewport's not locked. Now we won't require that you put the dimensions on this. That will be bonus, but I just want to show some technique as we continue to build on our skills. And it looks like my dimensions slightly off. I might have to fix that. And so my chair doesn't go back quite far enough for my armrest. So I'll need to extend that 1 inch. And the way that I would do that would be in model space. What I would do, I think the fastest way, rather than use the stretch command, would just be to offset this line right here 1 inch and then just bring everything with it. And so we can say offset 1 inch. And then I can go through and I can either refill it this or just move it and copy it. I think as we go through, the fillet on this is going to be 1 inch. And so I'll just erase this. And then I'll put my fillet back on here with a radius of 1 inch. I can do the same thing on this side to fix it. Offset 1. If I can't get that, I will turn off the dimension layer and offset that 1 inch. Fillet. And then when I come back to my dimensions, I'll put that back on. I can reinsert this dimension. All right. Now these are what are called multi-leaders. And so as we go through and we look at how those are created, again, this is just kind of bonus content. If we're going to go in and we're going to create a multi-leader, we go into the annotation tab and we can go to the multi-leader tab. And then as we put that in, let's see what it looks like right out of the box where we can, well, let's go to multi-leader. Let's look at our multi-leader style because I'm not too sure I want to do that. This does look good from our standard. It's got a basically a spline type of a geometry to that. I see multi-leader, and then I just click right here. I bring this out. I click again, and then I can type in chair arm, green check mark it. So it's way too big. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to go into my multi-leader style. I'm going to modify that. And on the content, I'm going to say scale to multi-leader layout. I'm going to OK that. I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to try that again. And we'll say chair arms. Green check mark. Back of the cushion. We can add our radius with a regular radial dimension here. If you double click on the dimension and then you hit the right arrow, you can then add the text. And depending on how your drawing technique, a lot of people will just put in multi-leaders rather than radial dimensions for things like that because it's just a little bit cleaner. What I typically do will use a nearest object snap to make sure that the arrow attaches to it. and then I'll put in the R1 typical green check mark. All right. Be sure to fill out the title block with your student name, put the proper date on it. We'll save this as conference chair. And that completes this video tutorial.